I can tell you that my degree in business, specifically in accounting, specifically studying tax policy, I understand how this revenue gets made and who pays for it. We really have a lot of work to do to equalize that playing field of revenue. The largest companies, the wealthiest Californians pay the less, if any, in taxes. Working people bear the brunt of paying that revenue, and it needs to stop. But you first of all have to understand what the rules are and how it works before you can even think about fixing it. So no joke, Autumn Burke came into this race, as I understand it. She has legacy, mother's been in this community, that's great. But what I looked at for me and for what my community needs is we don't need legacy and lineage. We need leadership, we need background, we need actual substantive skills to take on what is a very big job. And that is why I'm running, and that is why I'm so thrilled to be here today, even though I'm late and I really, really apologize.
Oh, you was right on time, though. Fiona, what you said the South Side?
Simona.
Wow.
I didn't pick it, but I am funny though.
Well, that's all right. Everybody's here for today.
Yeah.
You said the South Side of Chicago?
Yeah, 71st and Vernon. So just to give you a little perspective for all you non-Chicagoans, Michelle Obama talks about her South Side roots, and we know a lot about her family. 71st and Vernon is less than a mile from 67th and Rose, where she grew up. So same family, and what I would say about that is I can appreciate what she says, because what she talked about is not necessarily a overly wealthy community, but regular, hardworking people who were trying to raise their families, got up and went to work every day, just like she said. And my household was a little different, I have to tell you. It wasn't as idyllic. My father, who was that truck driver, was also a violent alcoholic. So we lived day in and day out in terror, and the police were at our house as a regular action. We actually thought that this is how all people live. It took me to be an adult to realize that no, some people actually go to bed at night and nothing happens in the middle, and then they wake up. And I'm glad for that. But I'm also mindful of that when we talk about educating some children, what they need, when we talk about keeping women and communities safe and what they need. Right now we have a crisis in California, and this is not on a lot of people's radars, but as a lawyer it is for me, and I tell you, which is that justice is closing down before our eyes. Last year, because of those budget cuts that we talked about, they closed 60 courthouses in the state of California, 250 court rooms in the state of California. So what does that mean? That means that people who need the courts to access justice cannot get it. So in some states that we hear about, Georgia might be one of them, I'm not quite sure, but tort reform and the Republicans are doing this and all this, they kind of come full frontal for justice, right? We're just going to, take away people's pensions and unions and all of that, just full frontal at the State House like in Wisconsin. I feel like in California that wouldn't sell, so they have to come at it differently. Justice is closing down in California because they are standing by and allowing it to be defunded. How does that what does that matter to people on the street? For women who are in those domestic violence circumstances, they cannot get into court and get a temporary restraining order and seek to try and get themselves out of a bad situation. They are sleeping in their cars waiting for the courthouses to open. Working men and women can't get a traffic ticket resolved without taking a day or two off work. And that's kind of a big deal, right? Children in foster care cannot access the court to have the court say, you need to move your transition, whatever it happens to be. And all of that is before we get to quite frankly, the challenge that Governor Brown put on us with realignment, which is that I'm simply going to start to empty out the state prisons and send prisoners to local control. Well, all of that has to go through the court system. So we have an overburdened, underfunded court system, and now we're going to put another big job onto that court system. And when I look at kind of what are people doing as a solution, it's frightening, because the solution in Los Angeles County is let's build a multi-billion-dollar jail up near Palmdale, a women's facility, because we know we're going to have occupants. And I would say no. Before we spend, multi-billions of dollars on a new jail for women, we need to return those mothers back into this community. We need to figure out how to re-enter them, and that is where our money should go, not on new holding cells for women. Because when you start to certainly imprison large amounts of women, you really weaken a community. You put more children into foster care. You put multiple generations in a household that can already not afford to have the people who are there. On and on and on. I get the problems, I have the skills, I have the background, and as you can tell, I am kind of fired up to for you, this thing.